Hello everyone, I'm Bashar. First, I'd like to make a quick introduction. I'm streaming, I've been streaming Hearthstone for about 4 years now. I'm a Turkish Hearthstone player. I stream on Twitch and I mainly focus on Arena. I also play ranked. And I wanted to put together a guide of arena basics and the multiple advantage types that are present in Hearthstone that give you an edge on how to get the upper hand on your opponent or against your opponent rather. So I'll try to keep it simple, guys. In arena, only standard cards appear. As you know, you have to pay €2 or £2 or $2 and then or 150 in-game gold, and then you are offered a selection of 3 classes out of the 9. Then you pick what you like best. Of course, there are classes which are more successful compared to others. For example, the top tier right now is Warrior, Hunter, and Rogue. Those are the most successful classes out of the 3. So if you have one of those as a selection, you should pick one of those. Of course, this doesn't strictly mean that Warrior will be always more successful than Shaman or Druid, but it's a strong indicator because it has stronger cards and more synergy. So there's a filter here, as you can see. It's standard card, all cards. All cards means obviously all the cards in the game, which includes wild cards and standard cards. Standard cards only includes basic cards, classic cards, and the up to 6 expansions from the last 2 years. Every year during April, 2-year-old sets rotate out. For example, in April of 2019, Journey to Angkor, Knights of the Frozen Throne, and Kobolds and Catacombs will move to Wild, and those cards will no longer be available in the arena unless there's special promotion like Wild Fest. So only standard cards are available, and there is a small list of banned cards which you can look up. It mainly consists of quest cards and hero cards like Malfurion, etc. Those are banned. So after you pick your class, you are offered a selection of 3 cards, and you are supposed to pick one until you have 30 cards. And those cards generally have similar power level because of something called buckets, which were added maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Normally it used an algorithm, but we didn't know the algorithm, but it was seemingly random. Now it's more of the same power level cards, guys. For example, it shows you 3 top tier cards or 3 bad cards, and they are close on power level, and you have to select what's best for your deck. But that's of course not perfectly done. Sometimes the choice is obvious, sometimes it's very hard to make. In order to find the right choice, there are add-ons and tier lists which give you the best cards, but it's generally better to rely on your self judgment sometimes, because the tier lists can be flawed, or it might not be the proper choice for your deck. A good rule of thumb is avoiding multiples of cards. You don't have to avoid multiples of all cards, but having two, or sometimes two is okay, but three or more copies of a single card can be dangerous for you, because all cards are weak to something. For example, let me show you. Well, here we are. Agnipper is an excellent card, guys. 3 mana 3/1 and gives you two 1/1 beasts, raptors, when it dies. However, this card is vulnerable to Fan of Knives, or Shooting Star, or Arcane Explosion, which deal 1 AoE damage. So and it's vulnerable against 3/4s because it doesn't trade. What you expect from this card is trading against an opponent's 4/3 or 3/3 and providing you with potential advantage because of the two 1/1s you get from the death rattle. But if you have three of these, and if you have two on board at the same time, your opponent plays a Mad Bomber, and you can be devastated because both of your Agnappers might die to the battle cry of the Mad Bomber. There's the Mad Bomber, in case you don't remember. Do it this way. Distributes 3 damage randomly amongst the entire board. So the possible advantages that you can obtain in Arena is, first, I'm going from the most important to the least important. The most important one is card advantage, guys. If you can neutralize an opponent's card without spending any actual cards, or if you can neutralize two of your opponent's cards with a single card, that is card advantage. There's mana advantage next. For example, if you kill a 3 mana minion of your opponent's with a 2 mana minion of yours, that's mana advantage. Say I have Mad Bomber and my opponent has, let's see, Blood Knight, and those two trade into each other because 3/2 kills the 3/3 and 3/3 kills the 3/2, and they exchange. So you would obtain 1 mana advantage. And if you keep this up, for example, kill a 4 mana minion of your opponents with a 3 mana minion, etc., etc., in the end you would have a big fat minion, say 7 mana, and he would have a 2 mana minion in front of yours, and then that will translate to card advantage. The least important advantage to have is life advantage. If your health is higher than your opponent's and the rest of the board and hand sizes are similar, then you would have obtained some life advantage. But that's generally not very favorable, because most of the time, in order to have a life lead, you would have to have less minions on the board or less cards in hand. I mean, it would generally translate into a card or mana disadvantage. If you can, of course, have the board and card advantage and life advantage as well, of course, then that's fine. But that's generally a little rare in Arena. If your opponent plays very badly or makes bad choices, then having all of these is possible. And in Arena, tempo is very important, guys. Sometimes you have to waste the battle cry of a minion that could actually prove useful in the future just to not lose them. For example, Blood Knight. If you don't have anything to play on turn 3 other than Blood Knight, but the opponent doesn't have a Divine Shield minion, you just let it go, because if you don't play it, the opponent might play some stuff and you can be behind. Then the comeback would be hard to pull off without a mass denial, mass removal card. And there's a subtle fourth kind of advantage, which is I name pick advantage. In Arena, you are offered cards from buckets, and the best bucket is bucket 1, and the worst bucket is bucket 7.5 or something like that. It's a 13th bucket. And if you can manage to kill a bucket 1 pick with your bucket 3 pick, say, then that's an advantage, which would mean not letting your opponent get value out of the battle cry or the death rattle of a minion, say. I'm gonna give it an example. There's Spider Bomb. I'm gonna find it. Yep, Spider Bomb, which is a very good minion with a death rattle that does what Deadly Shot does. Destroys a random minion. If you can trade your board into your opponents and then kill this one, then the death rattle of this card would go to waste. So he would essentially have played a 3 mana 2/2 minion, which is horrible. And then say you play Arcane Shot on it when you have no minions on board, and Arcane Shot is a mediocre pick and Spider Bomb is a top tier pick, and then you would have made 2 mana advantage and a serious pick advantage, because his bucket 1 pick or bucket maybe 1.5 pick died to your bucket 4 or 4.5 pick. This is a little bit hard to follow, but the gist of it is that you get the most of your battle cries and death rattles, and you try to let your opponents to go to waste. You can apply the same principle to attack and health. For example, guys, if you have a 3/1 minion, you want to hit a 5/3 of your opponents, because his 4 damage will go to waste, right? Because you deal 3 damage to a 3 health minion and it dies with 0 health, which is perfect, and your opponent's 5 damage will go to your 1 health minion and 4 of his damage will go to waste. So that's of course either generally mana advantage, because a 3/1 minion will be 2 or 3 mana with some ability perhaps, and the 5/3 will be 4 mana, and then you would have profited. So this is what you should pursue in Arena. First and foremost, card advantage, because if one side has many cards and the other side has few or none, and the side with the more cards has a decent life total, then the game is lost in Arena most of the time. The guy coming from behind will have to have very serious board clearing top decks and maybe even multiple top decks before the game is back on his side, because once you have the board, you just don't let your opponent keep anything on the board. It's easy, and since you have card advantage, you can even be okay with bad trades just to not take any more damage. There are of course cards which let you win those cards of games even if you are behind say direct damage cards or minions with charge. Direct damage cards cannot be countered other than health restore, life gain, but of course charge minions can be stopped by taunt minions. Weapons as well. Weapons can be stopped by taunt minions as well. So you have to have a healthy balance. I mean, you shouldn't overdo taunt minions because taunt minions are understated compared to regular minions. For example, you have on 4 mana, you have Shielding Yeti, which is a vanilla minion, 4 mana 4/5, and there's the Sanjin Shieldmaster, aka Tazdingo, which is a 4 mana 3/5 taunt. I mean, at the cost of gaining taunt, you lose one attack, and that's generally the idea. I mean, taunt minions have less stats compared to non-taunt minions, so it's balanced. So if you do overdo taunts, you will start to lose combats because your minions are understated. But you also have to have a decent amount of taunt so you can protect your fragile minions or yourself if took too much damage at the start of the game, because using your weapons might leave your life at a low total. I want to cover weapons as well, guys. Weapons are the best source to gain card and mana advantage all at once. So, let's take a look at the Arcanite Reaper, guys. Arcanite Reaper is a 5 mana 5/2 weapon, which means it can attack twice before getting broken, and so you can kill a 5 health minion. You can kill 2 5 health minions with an Arcanite Reaper, but you can only attack once per turn, of course, and once you attack the minion, you take that minion's attack to your face. Well, think of a scenario. Your opponent has a 5/5 minion and you play Arcanite Reaper and kill it. You take 5 damage and it dies. If you didn't play Arcanite Reaper, that minion would have dealt that 5 damage to your face anyway, unless you have a taunt. And then he plays, say, a 4/4, and then you kill the 4/4 as well, and you took 4 more damage to your face. So in total, you took 9 damage to your face and killed 2 of your opponent's cards. So with a single card, you managed to kill 2 of your opponent's cards, and what's more, you killed a 5/5 and a 4/4. 5/5 would be a 5 mana card, and 4/4 would most probably be a 4 mana card. You kill minions worth of 9 mana with a 5 mana weapon. So you have a 4 mana and 1 card advantage. The problem with this is, guys, you created a massive mana life disadvantage because you took 9 damage to the face. So in order to get most value from your weapons, you shouldn't overdo weapons. I mean, 5 weapons in an arena deck is absolutely overkill. 4 should be proceeded with caution. I mean, you may have to get rid of one of those quickly, because let's say you played Arcanite Reaper and killed one of your opponent's minions. The problem is your opponent most of the time wouldn't just play a 3/3 or a 4/4 or a 5/5 just for you to kill it with Arcanite Reaper. I mean, I would have played, if I can, for example, Direhorn Hatchling, which is 6 health and survives Arcanite Reaper's hit. Or I would play a Divine Shield minion in order not to give Arcanite Reaper any more bait. I would try to avoid that, and most players would try to avoid that. And for example, say you have 5 weapons in your deck, and I'm not letting you use your Arcanite Reaper optimally, So you have to keep it in front of you, and you draw another weapon and then another. So you have one weapon on the board and two weapons in hand, and there's nothing to hit. And then you get bored and hit my face, which is not optimal because hitting face should generally be reserved for setting up lethal or lethal itself. I mean, most players do that. I have seen it happen. For example, when I'm at 28 life, he hits me on my face with a 3 attack weapon. I mean, 25 doesn't do much because when you select Arcanite Reaper, which is a bucket 1 pick, you expect to kill 2 relatively big minions with 1 card. You don't expect to do 5 damage to face and kill a mediocre sized minion. It's not optimal. So you shouldn't overdo weapons, but you should have at least 3, I think, at least for warrior. And you have to analyze how long a weapon stays on board. For example, Arcanite Reaper is a 2 or maybe 3 turn weapon. Generally, you use it the turn you play it, of course, and then generally shortly after you use the second durability. However, Super Glider stays on the board for very long because its devastating ability, you play it turn where you get a very good value out of it, and then your opponent just doesn't let you use it unless he's a bad player, because Super Glider lets you kill 2 of your opponent's minions at once if they are properly positioned, and your opponent would either play a single minion in order to prevent Super Glider, or 1 health minion, or a taunt and something in between, just so you cannot bash 2 of your opponent's minions together with a Super Glider. Therefore, Super Glider is a 5-6 turn weapon, maybe. Stays on the board for very long. And Gore Howl is also like that. So having Gore Howl and Super Glider in the same deck is not a very good idea most of the time, because both of them stay on the board for very long. But 2 durability weapons are generally nice. Blood Razor, Arcanite Reaper, Fire Vortex, Woodcutter's Axe. I mean, 3 of those and a long-term weapon like Gore Howl or Super Glider is fine. And Warrior's new addition to its arsenal, Sultraze. This is one of the best cards in Rastagan's Rumble. It's excellent. You can think of it as a 2 durability weapon or something like that, because you can spend its durability very, very quickly. And there is a small trick when using Sultraze. You can use its final durability to overkill a minion, and you can play another weapon and can attack again. Say, for example, your opponent has played Serenite Chain Gang, 2-3 taunts, and then you have a 2 durability Sultraze in front of you and a Gore Howl in hand, just supposing. So you kill one of the 2-3 taunts and you overkill, then you can attack again, and then you kill the other 2-3 taunts and then you can attack again, but Sultraze is broken. You play the Gore Howl, hit your opponent's face for 7, and then you kill him. Possibly. I mean, it's an option, and it's a very powerful option to have. So to summarize, there's the card advantage, there's the mana or board advantage, it translates to that, and there's the life advantage. These translate to each other, but you cannot exactly formulate it. But for example, in order to make 1 card advantage, you shouldn't make 7 mana disadvantage. I mean, I'll set up a more practical example of it. Say you have Sprint in hand and you have a decent 7 mana minion in hand, and your opponent has something big on the board you shouldn't play sprint. I mean, sprint does a 3 card advantage, that's fine, okay, but the problem is your opponent has a big minion on the board, so he will hit your face and play another big minion on the board if he has. Then you'll be facing 2 big minions on the board and low life total because that big minion just hit your face, and coming back from that might be problematic. And then if you die with 6 cards in hand, you actually didn't do any card advantage there with the sprint, right? In order to make real card advantage, you have to be able to play those. Most players fail to read those situations. For example, the guy has card advantage, but he still uses his resources thriftily. For example, he does hero power, or he plays an understated minion when he has his hands full, and then you can do some extra damage and create a possibility of lethal or just kill him straight away. Reading these situations requires a lot of experience, or at least some amount of it. You shouldn't overdo either. I mean, for example, there are people who, let me show. Oh. There we are. As you probably know, this is one of the best neutral cards in the game. 3 mana, 1/1 Divine Shield Poisonous, kills 2 minions for 3 mana. 2 minions for 3 mana. It's awesome. When I play this card, sometimes my opponents just don't play anything at all. I mean, I know it's bad to give a minion to this for free, but if you don't give anything, it just stays on the board and kills your more expensive and more powerful minions. Some people just try to hero power it down. For example, a druid, I play this on turn 3, druid turn 4, he plays nothing, hits this, and I play something else and he hits this again and doesn't play anything, and then I play another minion, and now he has a lot of cards in hand, but I have a 4 and 5 mana minion on the board, and comeback is almost impossible for him because he just let the board go. He did 1 card advantage. He killed my Stoneskin Basilisk without spending any real cards, but he did huge mana disadvantage because he did nothing on turns 4 and 5 except for hero power. So this is not good. I mean, in order to make 1 card advantage, you shouldn't sacrifice 2 turns mana. It's not profitable. You have to read these situations and calculate if it's beneficial for you or not. So I think this summarizes my general guide for arena, guys. If you have any suggestions, I mean, on which video I should prepare next for you, or comments or questions, don't hesitate to leave your comment below the video. See you.